Welcome back and thanks. Let's dig in now. And this evening, the Electricity Company of Ghana is on an all-out war against defaulters and illegal consumers of electricity. And it's been 72 hours since they embarked on that national revenue mobilization exercise. Already, some 72 million cedis out of the 5.7 billion target has already been realized. They've been on an exercise in Tema today in the Greater Accra region. I'll give you details of that. But the ECG Managing Director has been interacting with my colleague Evans Mensah on PM Express, and for him, they are looking for up to 25 years imprisonment for illegal defaulters and consumers. You can listen to him.
In Ivory Coast, illegal connections is a criminal offense.
Yeah, I thought it is in Ghana as well.
It's not a criminal offense in Ghana.
It is?
It's
to steal
power. No,
power?
they call it a bypass. In Ghana,
power theft is not a crime.
No, so now we are making it a crime.
How?
Because it's stealing.
Yeah, but if it's not a crime by law,
so
unless you are amending
legally,
the law.
I'm not amending the law, but I'm charging you with stealing. What is stealing?
Yeah, but
let's not turn this into a law class. But what is stealing?
Stealing is a crime.
Yeah. So when you took the power, did you have any intentions of bringing the power back?
Of course not.
Aha. So
my point is that I'm just following on from the point that it is not a crime in Ghana. It has been all along. It's about how you interpreted the law.
Yeah,
now you are interpreting.
But the thing is, the law also says for whatever is a crime, the requisite punishment should be attached.
But once you say theft, then it's a crime, which with the prescribed.
But the prescribed plan for the punishment for the power bypass is a slap on the wrist. So
pay a fine.
Yeah, some penalties. But now, with the Chief Justice helping us with the utility court, which will be sitting on Saturdays.
Has it started?
Yeah, we are piling up the dockets now.
Okay.
This exercise, so what we just decided to do was to forgive and start afresh.
Okay.
You understand? Because you don't want stories, this happened, that happened. So we're forgiving. This exercise will build the docket to go forward.
So the next 1 month, what you started in the last 24 hours, you're building dockets on those who have stolen power. Yeah. And I'm using that because you said that's what we should be using now.
We'll be charging you stealing. No.
Okay.
Why should we use bypass? When you bypassed it, where did the thing go? When you bypass something, you should have been collecting it somewhere to return it. Not so. But the person has stolen. You have consumed it with no intentions of paying back. You've stolen.
And this will go to the AG.
Yes,
and then that
there's a station prosecutor at ECG. Do you know that?
Since when?
Yeah. Since time immemorial.
I see.
ECG has a prosecutor.
And people have been getting away with this step.
I said ECG has a prosecutor. See,
has he even ever prosecuted one case?
Yes, he has. There are a few of them. It's just that some of them do not come into the public. Yes, he's a seasoned state attorney. He was with Attorney General's department and then he came here. He's a seasoned a very good lawyer at that.
I see.
But now is the point where you have to resource the person to bite. So that's where we've gotten to as a company, because we've realized that everybody has decided to take us for a run.
In other words, in the next one, we are gathering evidence to prosecute people in the, what do you call the court?
The utility court.
The utility court.
Yeah, Ghana Water also has access to that utility court. So it's for the utilities.
But you are elevating this to theft.
Is it not?
And my question is, that is a crime that you can go to jail for.
Of course.
For a long time.
Yes.
And you want to put people in jail for stealing power.
So you don't want me to?
No, it's a question.
If you tell me I shouldn't, I'll tell the good people of Ghana. I just said.
No, I mean I'm just questioning that. I mean I'm asking
questioning
a question.
What, the morality behind it?
Not the morality. That's the Attorney General agree with you that we should elevate.
Does he have to agree with you?
No, it's about whether he agrees with your interpretation. I agree with you that when you steal power, right?
You turn this into a law class.
No, I'm just asking a question.
You know, sometimes punishment is to deter.
True.
So whoever the judge is would decide whether the full powers or full punishment of stealing should be visited on you for stealing power, or whether they'll slap you with a huge fine.
So I get what you're saying.
But you see, within that whole period, you can absolve yourself if you come and pay.
You just want the money.
I'm not saying that. Before people start thinking that, when I pay, look, we need to take things seriously in this country.
Okay.
One of our biggest problems is enforcement. We do not enforce things, so it just becomes a slap on the wrist. Oh, don't do that again. Oh, next week. Oh, next time. You understand? But now we are getting to a point where the way things are going, we need to sit up. We need to show a different trend to the next generation. It's about what we are leaving behind. If we do not do the right thing and we kill the energy sector, what would the next generation do? The energy sector is in debt, about 1.something billion. No?
Yes.
$500 million is here.
That's true. So I hear you say, when you go to utilities court, ECG is going to be demanding the full penalty for stealing, for those who you found, those whose evidence you've gathered in the next 1 month.
Yeah.
Okay. That part of this hasn't elevated to the surface in terms of the conversations since yesterday.
Yeah.
We only heard your revenue collected.
Yeah.
But you were saying, as part of this exercise,
yes,
it's actually an exercise in collecting evidence in the docket for prosecution.
Yes. Because right now, the thing is this. You've consumed. Why are you not paying? Why have you bypassed the meter? Why have you tampered with the meter? You know, let's be fair. We put so much responsibility on state institutions and government for that matter. We are demanding from them every single minute we have the opportunity. But now let's ask ourselves as citizens, when it's time for us to do what we have to do we do it? Just a few can hit their chest and say, oh, I do this diligently, I do that diligently.
Samuel Debeki Mahama is the managing director of the Electricity Company of Ghana. Already a number of institutions and companies have been taking off the grid, including the Cape Coast Stadium. But let's stay on the criminal prosecutions, intended criminal prosecutions to be undertaken by the ECG. We can hear from Augustine Obo. He's a former state prosecutor and a law lecturer. He's been explaining that to my colleague Evans Mensah on Top Story.
Well, you can always charge, that is not for the court. You can always charge. Charging somebody for stealing is very easy, but the difficulty lies with proving the guilt of the person. What is missing? How much? How did the person steal it? Is it something that your staff contributed? What happened? There are a lot. Charging is very easy. It's only one part of it. Very easy. Just drop the charge sheet. Somebody is an accused person. What is missing comes back to you. You must prove that. So they can. As for charging, they can. You can always charge somebody. You can always charge somebody. You can always accuse somebody. But even the state attorneys are telling you that they have difficulty prosecuting a lot of the cases. Then that tells you that it is not easy. If you have to charge somebody for criminal offense, you must go through processes and you must prove the guilt of the person charged beyond reasonable doubt. Normally, electricity matters, I wonder how they will prove it. Illegal connection. They don't have any means to ascertain what is missing. And sometimes I wonder how people could do it. Sometimes they themselves, their own workers come out to do it. Sometimes I was in my house when somebody came to give me a meter. Electricity bill. And looked at my face and told me that I can do something about the bill for you. I said, thank you, go, but the next person will cause you arrest. So if it is done by the workers, they themselves will know that it will be very difficult to prove that offense against the person because it has not been done by the accused person. It has been done by ECG staff. So the person can argue that I'm not aware that it is not passing through a meter. Where will you get that person? If now that we have energy commissioners in between the line, to prove that the electrification work has been done properly. So if the meter is not reading properly, it might be your fault. But they have to prove it. Some they may win, some they may find it difficult. That's the point that they are likely to face. They can charge, but charging is not enough. You have to prove the guilt of the person charged beyond reasonable doubt.
Augusta Noble, on the success or otherwise of the intended criminal prosecutions. Well, it's day 3 of that national revenue mobilization exercise embarked on by the ECG. They were in Tema today, and 2 main companies, Fabri Metal and Steel Star Limited, owing combined up to 46 million cedis, were taken off the grid. My colleague James Aveji was with the task force and has come through with this report.
So today is day 3 of the 30 days marathon of the Electricity Company of Ghana to collect or recover some 5.7 billion cedis of bills owed by their customers, including state-owned agencies, private manufacturing companies, as well as domestic users. Now, the team started their day by visiting the B5 Plus Steel Manufacturing Company in Tema, where they have been to on Tuesday. Now, they had to go back to B5 because the company nearly swayed them on Tuesday when they provided them a very much post-dated check. The ECG says they got to realize about the status of the check when they went to their office to actually process it. And so they had to come back with the intention to take the B5 steel manufacturing company off the grid. But managers of the company decided to go into a protracted meeting with the ECG officials, lasting about 45 minutes to an hour, and they finally agreed on a consensus. Laila Abubakari is external communications manager for the ECG, and she's been sharing with us what came out of that meeting.
We've just reached a conclusion with them this morning. On our way to disconnect their facilities. We made 50% payments now, and then the rest of the money will be paid next week.
You were here yesterday. Why did you have to come back today?
Because they generated invoices for them. They showed checks that they were going to pay yesterday. They generated the invoices, and then they hoped that they were going to pay the money into the account. But we realized later on that the checks were post-dated, I think 1 week apart. And so it means that most of them were going to check after the end of March, which was not acceptable. So we returned today in order to get all the 50% that had been promised us yesterday.
From Tema, the team moved to around Chopoli at the Fabri Metals Manufacturing Company, where we have been told that the company is owing 28 million Ghana cedis. The team was met with some level of resistance from officials of the Fabri Metals Manufacturing Company. That kept for about 10 minutes, and they went into another meeting which lasted a few minutes with an outcome.
They showed us a slip where they were paying an average of 3 million cedis a month. In some months, 1 million, 4 million, 2 million. I think in January and February, they paid 4 million each, but their average bill is about 6.5 million a month. And so I requested that at least 50% of the money be given to us now so that we can negotiate on the rest of the money they owe. But they said they are not able to cough out such an amount to us now. And so we had no option but to take them off. And so the task force went behind the ECG system and took them off, read the meter, and have taken record of how much the meter reading for today. So by the next connection, that is if they make the payment, we'll compare the reading we did today to the day we connect to make sure that they haven't reconnected themselves to the grid.
How many months does this 28 million cover?
It's about 5 months by our calculation. They pay an average of, or they usually consume an average of 6.5 million Ghana cedis, and it's in total 28 million Ghana cedis. And so you'd say an average of probably 6 months.
A second company which was taken off the grid today by the ECG is Star Steel Company Limited in Pram Pram. Now they owe the ECG some 18 million Ghana cedis, which they fail to make any form of payment for when the team went into their premises. So there's two companies which have been taken off the grid today, Fabric Metal as well as Star Steel Company, together owe the ECG some 46 million Ghana cedis. The team resumes to continue with the operation in the effort to recover some 5.7 billion Ghana cedis owed them. Reporting for Joy News, my name is James Kwesi Aveji.
From Tema, let me take you up north, where some residents there are accusing the Northern Electricity Development Company, that's NEDCO, of deliberately installing 40 meters. They claim that these meters consume faster than usual. We know that NEDCO is on the drive to replace some meters in the area, and this has been resisted by some residents. Today, NEDCO had to deploy police and military presence to foil an attempt by some residents to demonstrate against the acts of NEDCO. Well, let me bring in Maxwell Kotoka. He's head of communications at NEDCO, joins us live via Zoom with updates on what exactly the situation is. We are grateful for your time here on Joy News Prime, Mr. Kotoka. So we've been hearing from some residents all day today complaining about this mass replacement exercise embarked by your company. Tell us more exactly about it. What really is the situation when it comes to these meters? Hello, Mr. Kotoka. You have to unmute so we can hear you, Mr. Kotoka. We'll try again. Mr. Kotoka, if you can hear me, I'm asking about the exercise that you've embarked on in the northern region as part of replacement of meters. Okay, it appears that Mr. Kotoka is unable to hear, but we've been speaking to some residents about this situation. They've been making known what their concerns are to us, but my colleague Martina Bugri has also been following up on that. Okay, so it appears we have Mr. Kotoka. You can hear me now, Mr. Kotoka?
Yes, I can. I can hear you now.
That's great. So I was asking earlier about this meter replacement exercise and the claims by residents that you are deliberately installing this 40 meters just to rip them off. They say that these meters run faster than usual. Has that been brought to your attention, and what exactly is your explanation to what is happening?
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Good evening to you. Good evening to your viewers. Indeed, that has come to our attention, except to say that it is not entirely accurate that
You didn't complete that, Mr. Kotoka? Okay, it appears that the network is just failing us at this point, but we'll try again because we're interested in knowing what exactly the situation is, for which reason residents wanted to mass up at NEDCO offices earlier today, raising concerns about these 40 meters that run faster than usual. So we'll hear from NEDCO shortly with more details on this, because the residents there have raised these concerns. But whilst we wait and we connect with NEDCO Corporate Affairs Head, Mr. Maxwell Kotoka, let me bring you some other stories now. And this evening, the Civil and Local Government Staff Association of Ghana, CLOGSAG, is challenging the basis of the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission's decision to conduct payroll audit. At the time, public servants are agitating over inconsistent pay structure. We know that today the Fair Wages raised concerns about payroll fraud, amongst others, for which reason they are embarking on this exercise. We'll get to hear from Ben Arthur, who is the Chief Executive of the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission. But first, let's listen to CLOGSAG on their concerns about this particular exercise.
Of my knowledge, the Fair Wages hasn't got that mandate. Fair Wages hasn't got a mandate to do payroll audits. We have institutions that is their responsibility to do payroll audits, because what they have outlined shows that they want to do a payroll audit, and they don't have that mandate. So I don't know how they're going to do it. Who is giving them that authority, and from where they are drawing this mandate to do this exercise. If you look at their statements, even the paragraph 2, is saying the collective bargaining processes. Theirs is to do negotiation. So I don't know where they are drawing their powers from.
They claim they have the power. They
don't have. When you read it, they don't have. The Fair Wages and Salaries Commission, what capacity do they have in terms of accounting and internal auditing. This is a pure internal audit function. They don't have the mandate, to the best of our knowledge. This is not negotiation. And this idea of ghost name goes to, we've heard it too much. We have permanent department units under Ministry of Finance doing biometric, all in the name of ghost name. We have validation, where a third party, they are doing validation for salaries, all in the name of ghost name. Consultants that have been awarded in the name of ghost names, they are too much. They should change their strategies more. We are fed up of this every time ghost names. Who has been prosecuted in this country, in Ghana, of having put ghost names onto the payroll? They should tell us.
What should interest the fair wages?
It's inconsistencies in differences in public sector salaries. That's their job. What they are saying, I don't know who gave them those functions. I don't know. We look at their law. Even what they are quoting, they say collective bargaining processes. They are in charge of negotiations. This is not their mandate. So for us, we don't see where they are coming from. It is not their mandate. It's not their business. It's consultancy for their guru boys.
Let me bring in Mr. Ben Arthur, but before that, he's been insisting that it is part of its authority they intend to sustain to crack down the fraudulent salary payment in the public service.
But it's become very imperative as part of our mandate to make sure that we are able to do this exercise, not as an event. It has to be a continuous process. So we thought that it does not have to rely only on fair wages. We have to do this in collaboration with others. So we're basically asking all the public institutions to take steps to conduct their own payroll to ensure that any disparities or anomalies that we find in their pay structure is expunged. And it's very necessary that those who deserve what they are paid is maintained, and those who do not deserve what they are paid, they are taken out. There are a number of incidents where you realize that an individual ought to be on a certain level, but it is possible that the person is above that level or below. We have had instances where unions and the rest have reported, and even management have reported some disparities to fair wages. Some of them we have tackled, others have bordered on many other issues that we're taking steps to address. So once you are an institution that has developed pay structures, we have sat down, negotiated terms and conditions, we've determined allowances and other benefits. Obviously, the natural thing to do is to go back there and find out if it is being implemented the way originally intended.
Okay. But
and it also helps us with our internal control system, what is working and what is not working.
Thankfully, Mr. Arthur joins us via phone for further clarification on this. We're grateful for your time here on the Joy News Prime. Well, we've been hearing from ClockSAG, amongst others. They raise concerns about the mandates that you have. We've been looking at Section 3B, Act 737 of the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission. I know that gives you part of the mandate for which reason you're doing this. But what really is the objective? For them, you should be concerning yourself with inconsistencies in pay structure rather than looking at payroll fraud, when in fact the Auditor General, amongst others, are taking care of that.
So thank you very much. You mentioned that we should be concerned with pay inconsistencies and whatever, if I heard you right. Mm-hmm. But it's part of our mandate. I must admit that in times past, due to various logistical and technical reasons, fair wages had not been able to be very assertive in this mandate of monitoring. But of course, it's even organized labor, and through various engagements with management and organized labor of the various institutions, that continue to point out the fact that some disparities occur. There are times that people are entitled to certain kinds of allowances. They are not getting it. It's due them. We have even had negotiated agreements, and sometimes implementation challenges setting. So obviously the natural thing to do, as I've earlier said, is to step out there and ensure that those agreements are being respected. Apart from that, if in the course of the monitoring you also come across any fraudulent practices as far as payroll is concerned, you want to point it out for it to be singled out and dealt with. And I do not think that there is anybody in this country who should fear that Fair Wages is stepping out there to conduct payroll monitoring. It's within our mandate, simply because you cannot develop allowances and benefits for public servants and say that you do not want to care as to how it's being implemented, especially when we have had even an engagement at Kowu last year, and the tripartite community, organized labor, employers association, and government have even signed a communique agreeing that we need to take steps to ensure that the public sector pay policy, which is a single span pay policy in particular, is reviewed. So if we all agree that some challenges have occurred and continue to occur, definitely we need to step out there to ensure that the right things are done. Aside that, let me give a typical example. It is also possible that certain disparities have occurred in error. That must be corrected. It can also happen that certain disparities and practices have been very intentional and they have been very fraudulent in nature. Definitely, that must also be dealt with. How would an employee who is working hard receiving pay is also, another employee who is good in nature must also be receiving pay? That is cheating for those who are working. So we want to be sure that those who are actually on the payroll are the ones who must be there, and that what they are being given is what ought to have been given them. So if anybody is found to have been deprived of certain benefits, we will act to ensure. And I can assure the people of Ghana that the team that is coming to do this, if we find out that any of the team members is also compromised in integrity, has taken a bribe or has done anything untoward to jeopardize the action, we will deal with that individual.
Okay.
Because the time has come for us to be able to be very objective to what we want to do. The issue of whether fair wages people are guru boys or not, I do not think it's an issue that we need to really belabor that at all.
And I know the exercise is starting on the 1st of April, Mr. Afa.
I'm coming. We are the same group of people who led the various negotiations, which people are benefiting. If we were never called guru boys, or that one was job for the boys, obviously you cannot say that when we are setting out there to monitor what we have agreed to implement and to ensure that it's being implemented well, you cannot turn around and tell us that we are guru boys now.
Okay. Well, I know the exercise is starting on the 1st of April. How long is it going to be, if we may know?
It's supposed to be a continuous exercise. It's not supposed to be an event. In fact, we have been doing it since last year when I took over. We've been doing it on small scale. But now we want to go on a bit of a larger scale to ensure that others are benefiting from it. And I can tell you that there are some implementers, administrators who even face challenge in understanding some of the agreements and the administrative procedures. So when they also have the opportunity of encountering us, we take the opportunity to also educate them and give them first-hand information. When they have challenges, we'll help them with smooth implementation of whatever that has been agreed to.
Well, Mr. Arthur, this is an exercise that we'll be following closely. We're grateful. That's the CEO of the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission, Ben Arthur there, and also reacting to concerns raised by Clocksag about this particular exercise and its duplication. Well, let's head to the courts now, and we know that the Attorney General, Godfrey Apawu, is accusing the minority leader, Dr. Kayse Olatunfor, of being criminal and reckless in an ambulance transaction when he served as Deputy Finance Minister during the John Mahama era. So Mr. Dame therefore wants the High Court to order Dr. Forson to open his defense and also say why he ought not to be punished for causing financial loss to the state. Let's bring in our legal affairs correspondent, Joseph Akable, who's been monitoring this particular case for us. He joins me via Zoom. Joseph, let's talk about the stage at which this case is as we speak.
So it's at a stage where the prosecution has closed its case. It simply means that they've told their side of the story through 5 witnesses, including the current health minister, Akweku Agyeman-Manu, a police investigator, as well as officials from the Bank of Ghana. Now, the story of the state in terms of Dr. Olatunfor is 2 letters that he wrote, one to the Bank of Ghana asking that to establish letters of credit for Big C Trading Company, and the other being a letter to the Controller and Accountant General Department asking for more than 800,000 to be released to enable the establishment of these letters of credit. The AG argues that that is what triggered the loss, in that it meant that the supplier of the ambulance had access to payment, even though under the contract, the inspection was supposed to be done before the ambulances were shipped into the country. And so he says it's because the inspection was not done and the letters of credit had nonetheless been made available to the company that resulted in a situation where 30 ambulances which have been declared unfit for purpose came into the country, resulting in the more than 2 million euros loss of the state.
And these are claims that Dr. Atufozing and his team disputes.
Yes, his argument is to the effect that one, letters of credit do not constitute payment. And again, he says that he wrote those letters in his capacity as a deputy finance minister on behalf of the finance minister. And so it cannot be the case that he, one, authorized payment or that he acted in a criminally negligent manner, resulting in the loss of more than 2 million euros to the state.
What then happens next?
The case is back in court on March 30. The High Court, presided over by Justice Efia Saribotwe, who is hearing the matter as an additional High Court judge, to deliver her ruling, an important ruling that will decide whether the case terminates, i.e., if it comes to the conclusion that the AG's case does not meet the minimum threshold that requires Dr. Forson to speak. It means that it's going to walk away a free man. On the other hand, if they come to the conclusion that the AG has met the minimum threshold, it will mean that he would have to either go into the witness box or find witnesses to testify on his behalf in this particular matter.
Okay, thank you very much. That's a legal affairs correspondent, Joseph Akable. They're bringing us up to speed on that particular case involving Minority Leader Dr. Kaysel Atufo. Let me take you back to the northern region, where the Northern Electricity Distribution Company, NEDCO, has been accused by some residents of deliberately installing faulty meters that run faster than usual. For them, this is raising concerns, and they had to foil an attempt for them to demonstrate at NEDCO because of a heavy military and police presence at the NEDCO offices earlier today. Thankfully, I have a better connection to Maxwell Kotoka. He heads the Corporate Communications Office of NEDCO, joins us live once again. I hope I have a better connection to you now, Mr. Kotoka. So I was asking earlier about these concerns that have been raised by residents. I'm sure this is not new to you. What explanation really do we have to give to these residents?
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity. Good evening to your viewers. And I believe this is a better connection now. Yes, it is very true that our cherished customers have made some complaints about the meters that are being installed for them. Indeed, they, to a large extent, they are justified in some of the complaints, except that there are conclusions that the meters are the problem is what we find a little worrying. Somehow, the installation of these meters have coincided with a number of events. In the first place, these meters are being deployed as replacements of meters that are fairly old and less efficient. And so, as a direct consequence, and indeed some of them are even faulty, so as a direct consequence, chances are that these meters will, being as efficient as they are, read a little more accurately than the old ones. That aside, the fact also remains that these installations have been done over a period of time, during which we have witnessed two key tariff reviews, both of them upward. There was one in September which gave us about 27% increment, and then another followed with 30% increment. In some limited cases, restricted cases, not all, I must be quick to add, the meters have failed to respond to the increment in tariff immediately. So there are some isolated cases in which those meters did not pick the September increment. Proceeded to also ignore the February increment until they were updated later. And so once they were updated later, these customers are people who, through no fault of theirs, have been put on the pre-September 2022 tariffs. And then post-February 2023, their meters are updated, and then they are now on the February tariff. Putting the 27%, average 27% and average 30% increments of September 2022 and February 2023 respectively together, you come to a straight line of 57%. But indeed, It is not even 57% because the 30% now has a bigger base than the 27%. So cumulatively, that alone is about 65%. Apart from that, you would also appreciate that the tariff structure has changed. And so the lifeline consumption bracket has now become exclusive. What it means is that hitherto, these customers could have enjoyed the 0 to 50 bracket as lifeline and proceeded to continue, to move into the next bracket and proceed. However,
then the concern, Mr. Kotoka, the concern then for these residents is, at least at some point you admit that some of the anomaly is through no fault of theirs. What then happens? Are there any compensations in place? Because you know they are massing up to demonstrate. You had to foil that attempt. What happens to prevent further action from these residents? Because they are clearly unhappy with some of these developments.
Yeah, that is very, very true. So what management has done is that management has put a team together and we are in engagement with them. Indeed, this interview has started because we were in a meeting with one of the groups.
Okay.
And we are engaging them community to community. And hopefully, so far it's been quite fruitful and cordial. It's our expectation that we will continue to engage, deepen the engagement and resolve these issues amicably.
Okay. Mr. Kotoka, we're grateful. This is an event we'll monitor. That's the head of corporate communications for NEDCO. And just before we go for a quick break here on Joy News Prime, let's talk about climate, shall we? Because in Ghana, slash and burn agriculture is very common. But while it destroys both flora and fauna, it also leaves the land with depleted minerals. But an entity that we know about, the Ghana Permaculture Institute, works with over 8,000 farmers across the country, teaching them green practices that increases their incomes. Mahmoud Mohammed Nuruddin has our climate focus for today.
I am Charles Katere, the Deputy Director of Ghana Permaculture Institute. GPI, that is Ghana Permaculture Institute, was established in 2004 by the late Dr. Paul Yeboah. In 2004, he got the knowledge in the permaculture system when he was a monastery in Tanoboase in Techman. And when he had the training, he said, no, this system is a system that our forefathers were using. They were not destroying the land, they were just protecting the land, they were not using synthetic chemicals that causes a lot of harmful effects to the environment and to humanity as well.
Agriculture is both a sufferer and a contributor to climate change. Crop yields are threatened by droughts, floods, and soil degradation. Agriculture accounts for about a quarter of global greenhouse gas emissions. Permaculture, a type of a communal farming developed in the 1970s, could be a viable antidote to destructive monoculture. Permaculture encompasses economic and social aspects in addition to agriculture. Permaculture is one of the viable solutions to help combat climate change and food insecurity for the global population that is malnourished. It is inspired by the everyday relationships found in nature. One of the Institute's greatest ambitions was to phase out unsustainable agricultural techniques and improve the economic situation of rural farmers. Loss of biodiversity due to agriculture is becoming a global issue. Its genetic history is being lost as fewer species are farmed, as well as reliance on expensive imported agrochemicals, fertilizers, and seeds. Ghana Permaculture Institute, on the other hand, does something different. All of the practices are concerned with the environment.
In the Institute, we do organic farming, where we have different vegetables, we have different crops that have been planted, where we don't use organic chemicals, but rather we use organic fertilizer. That is animal manure. We apply sawdust. We also use mulching system where we apply coarse materials on the ground where we don't use pesticide, but the mulching system reduces the crop growth in the institute, in the communities.
So this is the neem oil.
We also have neem oil. This neem oil, what we use it for is...
That's our climate focus. You should expect more of that. We'll take a quick break here on Joy News Prime. We'll return with much more. Please stay. Welcome back. It's time for Showbiz, and Becky is here.
Good to see you. Where have you been?
Been around.
Oh, look at that hair.
Becky, what's in Showbiz today?
Well, Samira Yakubu, she is a movie producer. She basically film maker, and she spoke to us recently. She was talking about how government isn't supporting the creative arts industry like other sectors. Samira Yakubu.
We live in this country, the entertainment industry is not respected by any other person outside the entertainment industry. But the entertainment industry is the one that sells the country first. And that is, the entertainment industry is the one that can take the country everywhere, and football. But it's hard for policymakers to respect the sector. And I don't know why. I don't know why. I have not seen, to be honest, any of this, any of this government that have come, that have done anything particularly that anybody can show me if I am wrong to the entertainment industry to push. First of all, we call for just equipment. Do we have, we used to have Gamma Films industry, where when you even want to shoot on cinema, you could shoot. Even people coming from abroad to shoot Hollywood standard movie, or Hollywood movies and all that, foreign producers, they come and they take equipment from Gamma. Where is Gamma today? If someone comes from out and wants equipment to shoot film itself, where would we go to? We don't have. So you need to buy your own cameras, you need to buy your own lights, you need to buy your own equipment to be able to produce a film, a good job. So it's difficult for us. We call on government to support the industry. The industry is an important industry. We shouldn't look at it as just jokers.
You definitely do. That's it, Becky. Thank you so much for joining us.
Anytime.
And that's how we wrap up tonight's edition of Joy Prime. Make sure that you brush your teeth before you go to bed, and also in the morning. Make sure you brush tomorrow morning when you wake up, and brush your teeth with either Pepsodent Cavity Fighter, right, Pepsodent Charcoal, Pepsodent Herbal, and Pepsodent Triple Protection. I know charcoal is your favorite, because with Pepsodent, every smile matters. Have a good evening.